From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, Ryan Waterbury and I sit down and talk about why software companies need to honor deals when they are acquired. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And in today's podcast, I have my friend Ryan Waterbury with me doing our monthly segment. How are you today, Ryan?
Hey, we are in for 8 inches of snow, so I am doing fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have liked to have been in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. That caused me to cancel a Niagara Falls trip. They had 5 feet. So needless to say, Niagara Falls wasn't happening, my friend. So
yeah, that's a little more than even I like.
Yeah, I'm sure. I grew up in Montreal, so what the hell is snow? I think I can say that word. It is my podcast, isn't it?
It is.
It is. So today I thought we'd talk about a subject you and I have batted around for months and months and months, and that's what happens when a company in the WordPress space gets acquired and how it treats its users. And this is becoming an ongoing issue again and again and again.
Yeah, I think most recently we've seen some things, and including core with PHP 7.4 end of life. It's passed. It's done. You should be 8.0 or even 8.1 if you want to look at that compatible. And there's a lot of plugin manufacturers and software companies out there, and particularly some of the ones that have been acquired that are lagging behind, that are not PHP 8 compatible. And when I've logged some support tickets, I haven't gotten very nice or polite responses back.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. And I think you really have to vet your development stack or your SaaS stack, because that's where we see a lot of it, right? And say, okay, is this company going to be viable or is it not? And one of the things I look at today a lot of is, are there too many long-term deals or LTDs kicking around? Because I think if a company keeps offering an LTD year after year after year, the odds are there's probably a cash flow issue.
Yeah, one that comes to mind that was acquired and quickly spun off, is ACF. Mm-hmm. And, that was a tool that was that Elliot had done, to aid in his own development, and then sold it and monetized it, which was fantastic. And ACF and pods especially helped the custom fields tools have sped up my development process drastically. And there had been an LTD forever. That's all there was. There wasn't even an annual subscription. And, for a passion project, the lead developer on it, using the tool for his own work, that's one thing. But then you sell the tool, and Delicious Brains picked up the tool and started backtracking on whether new updates were going to be supported with the LTD license holders. And, there was some backpedaling that said, yeah, we'll honor that. you have to honor some of those things. I mean, you know that going in when you purchase a product. But quickly, I think it was maybe 11 months later, they bailed and completely on all their plugins and sold their complete plugin stack to WP Engine. But it was just ironic on the timing and some of the troubles I think they saw with monetizing that LTD. They did make some really nice, tasteful updates and had done some nice things that were good. But, LTDs, it's a great way to get an influx of cash to start a new project. But the longer you run that, the less viable your product's going to be. I mean, it's tough to work for free.
No, it's true. And what people always underestimate in the SaaS or the plugin world, it's not just the software, it's the support costs, right? So you and I both know support costs can go through the roof. And how do you fund that if you don't have an influx of cash?
One of the other LTDs that's been out there forever and is an amazing tool is the SoFly Tools WP All Import. And they've raised their prices a few times. And I did the math because it had been on LTD forever. And I said, okay, if, X number of people buy every year, they're doing fine. Now, this is the same group that did Oxygen and now Breakdance. So they have other revenue streams there. But they came out and said it. They just said, look, we can't remain financially viable anymore doing an LTD. And we can't support it. So after this date, we're cutting it off, and it will move to an annual subscription for all new people that buy the product. And I think they were the first company that was honest about that said it takes money and time to support this product.
Yeah. And I think it's so true. And I think back, there's two situations I'm thinking about in my head right now, how they handle LTDs. The first is Headway Themes. Remember them? And they handled LTDs where in version 1, version 2, and version 3, anybody that bought Headway got unlimited support for a lifetime and unlimited updates for a lifetime. And guess where Headway Themes is now? Do I dare even go there? They don't even have a website up anymore. It is gone, non-existent.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that swore by that framework and their themes, and they were great. But LTDs, if you look at it as that initial launch and funding period, and you cut it off, and you start building a model that builds you recurring revenue, and you build that subscription service, that's great. But if you don't cut it off and you run your LTD over and over and over, that's a recipe for disaster. And I'm starting to take a hard look at LTDs when I look at my software stack, because I've had too many that have fallen off and aren't supported because the developer can't make any money on the tool, and so they're finding other things to spend their time on, and then it becomes out of date, and you're kind of SOL.
Yep. And then the other company I wanted to touch on, because I think it's really interesting, is we know who the number one selling theme on ThemeForest of all time is, right? It's a company called Aveda. And the way Aveda does their LTD is a little different twist. They've recognized that the cost is in the support cost. So what happens is when you buy their theme, you get 6 months of free support. And after that, you either extend your support or get a support contract, or you're on your own. And I think that's a better way of handling it, because they keep growing. Their product keeps getting influx of cash for support, and the rest becomes a non-issue.
Absolutely. And, maintain viability, and they have funding continually through their licensing and annual support fees that they can afford to develop new features.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of, we talk about these deals since we just came out of Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
That's another interesting one. I think we touched on it in our last podcast, but I'm seeing more and more that companies are doing just these crazy deals, 40, 50% off. But then they're, and I bought some things like that last year. But my renewal, they're running the sale again for new clients only, 40% off. But my renewal is at full price.
Yeah.
That kind of stings a little because, we used to see this before the LTD craze, that software developers, plugin and theme developers, they maybe Beaver Builder is a prime example of a company that does it really well and treats their clientele great. They run one sale a year on Black Friday through Cyber Monday for 25% off for any new users for any of their tools. And then what's really nice is the renewal is at a 40% discount. And I think that's pretty steep. But that used to be the old model that, hey, why would you go anywhere else? We're going to give you a discount to continue to use our tool.
And then the other thought, interestingly enough, is certain companies that offered LTDs, and I come down to a company like Restrict Content Pro, which is a stellar brand. They did not offer a LTD this year. They actually went to a 40% discount, right? So,
yeah, they excluded their lifetime plans from their 40% discount. Now, I think you and I, right after Stellar had purchased, this was 2 years ago, maybe, purchased their LTD. Yeah. And it was on a screaming deal. I think it included the 40% off. And it's a nice tool to have. Unfortunately, some of those products, when they get purchased, development just falls off. And it's just another tool in the showcase. I always look at RCP. I'm just like, there's not been any real new development on that tool for years. And there's been some little fixes here and there. But again, that's also another tool that isn't PHP 8 compatible and I think needs some love. But so when we looked at the purchases a couple of years ago and talked about that in a podcast, that, hey, the WordPress market is maturing and, that these companies are becoming financially viable and you're seeing hosting companies invest in, purchasing plugin suites. Some of those plugins have really been left to, I almost want to say, die in the vine, and that it's just another tool in the showcase, and that there's not been new development in some of these tools that have been purchased by particularly hosting companies.
No, it's so true. And then we get the support problems. And I'm going to really hammer on my most unfavorite LTD for support problems, and that would be MailPoet. So Automatic bought MailPoet a couple of years ago, right after they launched a major LTD deal on AppSumo. They had major influx of cash. They said, we're going to honor the LTDs, but what they didn't tell you was they were going to change all the rules. And that is a bit of a problem. And so to get on my soapbox, because I can, is the problem I have is when you buy an LTD, you should be absorbing all the contractual obligations of the previous owner. So that means the rules shouldn't change. The support structure shouldn't change. Nothing should change. And they're changing it. I have a big problem with this issue. And frankly, MailPoet has become almost useless and unusable.
I absolutely agree with you there. And I think the the AppSumo launch, for LTD that you're talking about was their second launch. That was actually a Black Friday bring back. They had earlier in the year already run an LTD, and I had purchased a few codes, and then I max stacked because it was such a good deal with including SMTP sending right within the plan. And they had talked about, well, we're working on automation. It should be done shortly. And then it was less than a month later that Automatic purchased them and development stopped. I mean, quite literally stopped. It didn't just, slow down, but there was no new development on any of those features that were on their roadmap. There were minor fixes here and there, little by little, but it was maybe 2 weeks ago, and this is 2 years after they promised that automations and some of the things that we see in Fluent CRM, Mailster, and then the SaaS solutions out there like MailChimp and MailerLite. They're just announcing that they're in beta with that now. So it's not just hosting companies. I mean, I guess you can look at Automatic with WordPress.com as a hosting company. I think they finally figured that out that they are. But yeah, support when these tools get purchased, it's not there a lot of times. And, it's not just these small, unique passion project tools. I think when they bring that staff along with it, I think Cadence is a good example where they brought the original development staff along. You're seeing good things there. And, that's another stellar product. But I think, once they leave the person that had the passion for the product that wanted to solve a problem, once those people are out of it, it just becomes another asset in on a company's ledger.
Cadence is a bit of a different omen too, because those who don't know, the marketing director up at Cadence is my good friend Kathy Zan, and Kathy has extreme passion for that as well. So to be honest, they benefited because of Kathy's knowledge and experience in the WordPress space, which has kind of helped them in a big way. So that's a little different, but Ben Rittner's still there and his sister's still there, and that makes all the difference in the world. So where do you think the WordPress space should go with these LTDs? Like, do you have any?
I think LTD launches are great. And, if you're a brand spanking new product out there, it's a great way to get a cash influx. Now, I think the WP Managed Ninja Group is a really good example of someone that runs an LTD, and then whenever they launch a new product, they run an LTD. And I'm still kicking myself for missing the Fluent CRM LTD, but then they never run it again. Or if they do, it's super super special, and it's one more limited run. But then they roll into annual SaaS only. They don't use AppSumo. They don't use anyone else, and they do all their own marketing. Now, I think that's the smart way to do it, to get a quick influx of cash, to be able to and also build a user base of people that are going to hammer on your product and give you good feedback right off the bat. Nice. But doing a very, very limited LTD run, I think, is the only viable way moving forward. The ones that have run for years, like you mentioned it with Headway, they're just not around anymore.
It's true. Or do what Aveda's done, as far as I'm concerned, and say, okay, the software updates don't cost anything, it's the support, and charge for the support. I mean, that model works too, as far as I'm concerned. So,
right. And they have other add-on pieces to that are annual. The core is once, and then it's support. And then other add-on products cost you annually to use. That's kind of with the freemium method that some plugin developers used to use. But I hear from a lot of plugin developers that that model, the freemium model, and using WordPress.org to market your product and then offer premium features in a pro level plugin isn't as viable as it used to be.
Yeah, well, it depends who you talk to. I've talked at length to Mark Westgard over at WS Forums, and he told me outright the WordPress.org was a viable option. So I guess it depends on what side of the fence you sit on.
Yeah, I think it depends on the tool and what that particular tool does. And also, when we had access to number of installs before Automatic decided to squash that, that was another good way for popular, well-written plugins to gain popularity and trust. I mean, we're on the inside. We know what tools are being actively developed and coded well. But people out there like the DIYers that are still, spinning up WordPress sites, they will look and see what some of the most popular tools are because there's a ton of installs. They get updates regularly. And, so that's where I've been seeing some griping that it's become less viable. But that's another discussion.
Yeah, but you got to be careful of that too, because one of the things that goes on with active installs is, again, I'm going to go back to Mark at WS Forums. He doesn't require the free plugin to stay installed the minute he goes to you buy the premium. He actually forces you to uninstall it because it keeps it a little leaner. And the problem with that is then your number of installs for your free plugin drop the minute somebody buys the plugin because they uninstalled the free version and installed the premium version. So that number isn't totally accurate either, Ryan.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of goes with philosophy on development. I'm a Gravity Forms user and there's no free version. I mean, it's $59 a year, so it's not a huge thing, but there's the core plugin and then any additional, pieces are added on, as additional plugin installs, which I think is a good way to do it. It helps you keep your core lean and then only add the functions that you want to add. And I also think that a lot of the freemium model plugins, from the repository, I know Fluent CRM is free for its core. It's on WordPress.org. Then if you want the pro features, like interfacing with EDD or WooCommerce, that's a separate plugin install. So you have to maintain both.
So true. Do you have anything else you want to add that people should be careful of or should do or should consider?
It's always been a gamble, when you look at these LTD purchases. And yeah, I've been bit on some ones that I went all in on and, are dead on the vine and no longer being developed. Had to find other solutions. And, that's a pain for me, but I absorbed that cost as an agency owner. But so it's a tough one. And I just like to tell people to take a look at, their software stack and, try and find tools that, are going to be useful for you, that definitely fit a need you have today. And, do your best to do some research. WordPress.org is still a great way to find new plugins.
No, I would agree. I would agree.
I certainly didn't mean to bash it at all earlier, because it's right there, and I still do searches now and again. Google will come up with .org results as well when you do searches for tools. But I look at when was it last updated, what PHP version is it compatible with, how many active installs are there, is there a pro version that can help the developer support themselves so they can continue to provide support. So those are all things that kind of come into play when I look at tools. And there are some great free tools out there that that just fill the need for a developer. I've written a few plugins that I use for myself, and I've distributed. I'm probably looking at taking one over on .org because it hasn't had any development in a while, but I have used it and extended it. But that those numbers don't really show you that it's actively supported. So, but just do your research and try to do the best that you can on making those decisions.
Yep. Thanks, Ryan, as always. And I know we're not back with our listeners before the holidays, so we hope everybody has a good holiday season, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you so much, as always.
Have a good day, Rob.
And by the way, just for the record, because I have to make my usual comment, we got to another podcast show without the office team upsetting the podcast. So that's an endeavorment that Ryan continues to work on.
We're pretty lucky that the snow's still falling and the cleanup crew is not outside yet. That usually gets them going.
Thanks, Ryan. Have an amazing day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.
All right. Bye.
This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Very special thank you from my good friend Ryan Waterbury for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.